Hi, this is Ushio, and today I'm going to do a review of Weekly Shonen Jump all of 2016. This is probably going to be a fairly long video, more like a podcast than any kind of proper video. But there's a lot to get through, so all I'm looking at today is specifically Viz Media's Weekly Shonen Jump app. If it's not on that app, I'm not going to cover it. So if it's on the Shonen Jump website, it's not on the app, I'm not going to cover it. If it's on the tablet, or if it's on your phone, then that's fine. It's a really cool app. I've been subscribed. This is my second year subscribed to it now, and I find it really useful. I pay like a one-off fee for the year. It's about $20-30, something like that. And I'll get it on Monday afternoon, and every week I'll get about 200 to 300 pages worth of manga, and I can just read that through. You download it. Once you've downloaded it, you're not reliant on an internet connection to read it. So it's really fun. So that is pretty much what we're doing. As a side note, also on the app is Boys Over Flowers Season 2. There's a shoujo title on there, and it's quite good. It's free to read. You don't actually have to have the subscription to read it. And that's been updating weekly throughout the year. And yeah, it's fine. I don't know why it's on there, but I'm grateful because it's extra manga I can read. And it's good. And yeah, here we go. This 2016's been quite a big year for changes and transitions, so it's going to be quite fun to go through this list. So first we're going to go through the manga that ended this year, quite a few. So first up, in August, Nisekoi False Love ended, and it was a long old series. It was the typical like a love triangle type manga. You got one guy, and then you got the girl next door, and then you got the other girl, and will he, won't he, will she, won't she, all that. It's the typical kind of stuff. It's not 100% my kind of thing. Yeah, just a disclaimer, this is my personal opinion video. These reviews are personal opinions, so I'm not going to praise everything, but I can respect something like Nisekoi. Is what it's doing, it does well, and it did it right through to the end. The ending was actually quite nice, quite sweet. Whether he picked the best girl or not is up for debate. I'm not too worried. But I've been reading it throughout the year. It was, in my mind, it was kind of dragging on a little bit, but then it'd be going for like 20 odd volumes, so of course it had been dragging on. It's a simple premise like that, but it got a solid conclusion, and it got a conclusion that it deserved, and I think that was fine. So if you're a fan of that series, you should be fairly satisfied with that. I think that's fine. Moving on, we have got Bleach. That is a huge title that finished, and it took a long time to get there. It really took a long time to get there, and it's over, it's finished, it's done. Bleach was kinda it was a massive title for a whole generation of fans. It really was too long. I don't think many people would disagree with that assessment. It's quite a long series, and the second half of it, I don't even know what happened with the story. Half the main characters disappeared. I mean, where his sister's just disappeared. Do you remember Con? He disappeared, and you just focused on all these other characters that I didn't particularly care about. The very last chapter was so, but in a lot of ways it's a bit of an end of an era. So Bleach going, that's Shonen Jump is now wide open for another big new series. But I'm glad Bleach finished the way it did. It didn't go out at its worst times. It kind of got a little bit back of respect. People started enjoying it a little bit more. So it kind of ended on a better level than what perhaps it would have done a year or so ago. So I'm glad people was able to see it out, and like on more or less good terms. That was pretty good. Alright, next up, I'm just going in order of when they ended. So next up was Love Rush, which is quite a short series. I kind of suspected that it would do a little bit better than what it did. Basically, Love Rush was like a romance series where there's a guy, he's got a special gene, which means that he always gives off, I don't know, pheromones or something, and all the women around him unconditionally love him. They don't really care what he looks like. They just love him just because it's not their own choice. They just have like a biological reaction towards him, which he isn't particularly interested in. So he's trying to get rid of all these girls. Then there's the girl next door who they're friends, you know. She's the only girl who isn't actually mad for him, and she's the girl he likes. And then there's like this supernatural lady shows up, and she's all over him, and she's fallen in love with him as well. And there's a love triangle between a spiritual kind of like a monster type person, the girl next door and our character. And I thought it was fine. Because Nisekoi ended, I thought there would have been a gap in Shonen Jump for another romance series like this. And I thought Love Rush was more or less fine. It was generic, but it had a couple of nice episodes and it had the right mix. But for whatever reason, it didn't really take off, and it ended. It lasted 13 chapters, so maybe 1-2 books if you're pushing it. So that's not a lot of manga, but that was in and out pretty quickly, which I thought was a bit of a disappointment. I think it had a little bit more to give, maybe get up to 50-60 chapters or something. But no, Love Rush. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't make the cut for whatever reason. I thought you were fine. The next series that ended, Toriko, another big series. It got to like 40 odd volumes, and Toriko is one of these series that's been hyped up as the next big thing. Like, they were teaming him up with Luffy on One Piece and Naruto and Dragon Ball, and they really wanted it to be the massive new breakout series. It didn't really hit that mark. It did well, and then probably at about the midpoint of the series, it kind of started to get really seriously bogged down in its world building. You would go for chapters where people were just talking about atoms and space and how everything affected one another on a metaphysical level. It got really, really way too deep into its world building. Essentially, it's about a guy who goes around, he wants to eat good food, so he goes around beating up animals and eats them. That's essentially what Toriko is about. Go on an adventure, you find a big monster, beat the shit out of it, eat it, job done, next adventure. That was all it was, and it got way too deep. But the final arc was actually quite good though. It started to, once it remembered who its main character was, he actually showed up again, and they started having a massive world-destroying fight. It was actually really cool. And the last few chapters were quite nice. The whole philosophy about it was sitting around with friends, eating good meals together, and something that can be shared. It was quite a sentimental, but a positive way for people to eat food together. And yeah, it ended well. There was a time I used to dread when I got to the chapter, I'd be like, oh, it's Toriko, and I just have to trudge through it. But yeah, the final arc, the big last fight, was actually quite good. It had it all going on, and it had a good ending. So yeah, Toriko, you did your job. Good stuff. And the last title that ended this year at the end of November was Red Sprite. It was another short series, only 14 chapters in total. It was basically, there's a bunch of kids in an orphanage who get blown up for whatever reason and then kidnapped so they can be used as human batteries. It was basically a steampunk version of The Matrix or something like that. However, I never really connected with the main character or his plight. The first chapter was kind of okay, but the artwork was fine. The page layouts weren't particularly exciting, and it was quite talky. There was a lot of chatting going on for an action series, and I was a little bit distanced from it. I wasn't particularly interested in the political intrigues by chapter 2. I wanted a bit more action and a bit more interest in the characters before I got really into it. But yeah, so honestly, I wasn't that interested in it, and I wasn't particularly sad to see it go, which was a shame. Yeah, so that is it. 5 series ended this year. 2 of them were short series, but 3 of them were very long-term series, so it was quite a shake-up for Shonen Jump. Next year is going to be interesting to see what new series take off and where we're going to be. What's going to be the next best thing kind of thing. Shonen Jump, they like to do these jumpstart series where they trial series and try and get reader feedback on which ones they do or don't want to continue. And yeah, we're going to run through what happened this year. So first up was Kimetsu no Yaiba, which I really liked it. It was quite a cool story. It's kind of like period, Japan, samurai kind of era, that kind of thing. And it's about a guy, he goes home one day at the end of a long day's work and he finds that his family has been wiped out by, monsters or something like this. And also his sister's been infected by the monster and she's starting to turn herself into some kind of beast. And it's kind of got an action horror vibe to it. The artwork's a little bit imperfect. It didn't really bother me. I quite liked it. It very much reminded me of Rumiko Takahashi Mermaid Saga, a little bit Inuyasha, but more Mermaid Saga. It was a little bit on the dark side, and I quite liked it. It's also, the Viz Media chose not to continue it. Like, they do the 3-chapter trial, and then that was it. They left it there, and it's a shame. It's still running in Weekly Shonen Jump in Japan now, so it's obviously found an audience of sorts. I don't know. I don't think it's super popular, but it's continued on, whereas a lot of these series haven't lasted, you know. And so Kimetsu no Yaiba, if we're lucky, maybe it will return. If it maybe gets an anime adaptation and starts to get a bit more interest on this side, maybe we'll see it return. But currently I'm not sure, which is a shame, because I was quite keen on it and I wanted to see it some more. Another title, it only got 1 chapter. I think they used it as a fill-in. They didn't have many series to run that time, so they just jammed in a quick chapter of this. It's called Bye Bye Humanity, which was essentially a survivalist manga. And I'm not particularly surprised that it wasn't continued in its Western release. It was basically about a girl learning how to set traps by grabbing household items and making weapons out of them. It isn't very suited for young readers to be reading, because it might give them funny ideas or enable them inabilities that they perhaps shouldn't be cultivating. I'm not sure. But I thought it was quite good. I would have quite been interested to read a bit more of that, but was not to be. Next up, TAKUAN and BATSU'S Daily Demon Diary. Oh, it was quite a long... This was in May now. I'm trying to remember back in the day what it was like. Basically, there was this... It was like a comedy thing with like demons and monsters. And I remember this guy and this girl who's not wearing very much. She kind of has a portal coming out of his bumhole. So she kind of teleports out of his bum all the time. I thought it was pretty funny. I quite liked it. I don't think it lasted for particularly long. I think it's since met its end in Japan. But I thought it was quite throwaway. I quite enjoyed it. And it would have been nice. I certainly preferred it to something like Red Sprite. And that got given a shot. So I'm not quite sure why this one didn't get picked up. Maybe it was a bit too naughty, a bit too rude with the bums and boobs. Something like that. But I thought it was fun. So I kind of missed that one when it went. Right, next up is Amalgam of Distortion, which was... There seems to be a trend of like a rivalry manga. So you get 2 characters, one will have blonde hair, one will have black hair. And yeah, you can blame Naruto if you want for that, or you can blame, I don't know, Bleach to a certain extent. But yeah, Amalgam of Distortion, this guy gets hit by, I don't know, a train or something like this. And when he wakes up, half of his body's turned into a demon. This kind of deal. And it wasn't particularly original. It wasn't particularly different. It was quite a standard setup. It was virtually kind of like Bleach, the kind of setup. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing great about it. It was serving its purpose. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to get brought back or not. One way or the other, could be good. It's too early to judge this kind of thing because the setup's so, like, you've seen it before. It's what happens afterwards where you can decide whether it's any good or not. But it seemed fine, so I'm not sure if we'll see it again. But that was that one. Next one is Spring Weapon Number 1, which I had a bit of a soft spot for. I thought it was quite funny. This was about the super dangerous robot that had escaped, and it could end the world at any given moment. And this guy, he's like a super secret agent in school somewhere. He's like undercover, trying to keep the peace behind the scenes. And this robot shows up as a student, and he's completely pacified. He's completely chill. He's almost like a Bancho type character. He might as well be chewing on a bit of grass, something like this. He's really, really cool guy. And he's got a screw in his head, and I think if you tighten the screw, he kind of loses it and he starts to destroy stuff. And it was quite a fun comedy manga, and a little bit quirky, and I really enjoyed it. I was disappointed that it wasn't picked up. I would like to see it continue, but I'm not hopeful. But that was one of my disappointments, that we didn't get to see more of that one. 2 more to go. We got Demon's Plan. Quite recently this one came out. It's another rivalry manga. You got 2 characters. They were super best friends living in poverty. They get betrayed basically by the adults around them, and it creates a distance between them. One essentially kind of sells his soul to some kind of contract where he's got super devil powers kind of thing. And our friend, like the main character, he kind of ends up doing a similar sort of deal, but to save their friendship. it was quite cool because with the rivalry manga, they kind of do the action first and then build the relationship. This one built the relationship before it did anything else. It had quite a strong connection between its two main characters, and so when the story happened and they had to take action, I was a lot more engaged with it. I thought it was quite good. And the last one that just appeared toward the end of the year was Ole Galazzo, which is, it's kind of a sports manga basically on or what do you call it? I call it football, but you might call it soccer. And it's about a guy, he's a taekwondo fighter actually, and because he gets into trouble at school, he's banned from participating in taekwondo tournaments. Doesn't know what to do with himself, and as fate would have it, he ends up kicking a football, and he's got a good kick on him, and he can score goals from like crazy angles, this kind of thing. Again, it's too early to tell, but I quite liked it. The guy, he's like a thug with a good heart, so you've kind of seen him in Slam Dunk, you kind of see him in Yusuke and Yu Yu Hakusho. It's this kind of character. He's a bit rough around the edges, but he's got it where it counts. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing more of it. I'm not sure, because I don't think football is particularly popular in the United States. So yeah, I'm not sure we'll see it return, which is a bit of a shame, but it seemed fine. It seemed quite fun. And that is it for the Jumpstart series, which brings us to the currently running stuff. I've just gone on the Wikipedia page for what's currently running. I'm cheating. And I'm just going to go through in order of how old they are. So we're going to go with the oldest stuff first, and then we're going to work our way forwards. So the oldest one, the most classic one, is we've got One Piece here. And what can you say about One Piece that hasn't already been said? It's virtually critique proof. You can either praise it or you can trash it. It doesn't actually matter. You're not going to change anyone's opinion on it. I think it's fine. Personally, I don't think it's quite reached the heights of just before the time skip. And after the time skip, it took quite a long time to get to where it is now. But now it's really good. It's fine. It's One Piece. You know what I mean? There's no point really saying much more. But it's decent. And if you like One Piece, it's more of the same. It is quite thick with having so many characters. So many characters. And it does seem to have the whole, now we're done the time skip, every character's going to get their own major story arc. So at the minute, we're in the Sanji arc. And I'm sure later on, Luffy's going to get the final arc. Then Nami will get an arc first. But yeah, we're doing Sanji's story at the minute. It's building up quite nicely. Someone's trying to get him married. Which is kind of a cool story. And it's going to be interesting to see where that ends up. But One Piece, it's not going anywhere. And it's good. I'll happily read it. It's no problem. And next along is Blue Exorcist, which it's still good. The artwork's great. And the story is interesting. I still have the hang up with it though, that the characters don't talk to each other, and that drama is kind of found from the characters all sat around amongst each other, and they all speak in half sentences. They're all staring at each other, but they're not actually communicating, and it's quite frustrating that they could just talk it out and solve a lot of problems. I know conspiracies is one thing, but these guys just don't have very good communication skills, and it's just get on with it, talk it out, have a fight, move on. But I do like it. I can understand why it's popular. I quite enjoy reading it. You only get one chapter a month, so it's kind of cool. And next up, which brings us to One Punch Man, which, as far as I'm aware, is it weekly? Is it monthly? You kind of get odd-sized chapters. You get like an 8-page chapter one week, then you get like 20-page chapter another week, and then you get a break. So I've not really followed how it's serialized in Japan, but they're obviously trying to cater for it when they're releasing it on the app. Yeah, it's really good. The artwork's great. The story is funny. It is essentially a one gag thing, which means that you don't actually see that much of the main character. You're looking at the secondary characters way more than the main character, which is kind of a cool way to, like, you kind of anticipate for when the One Punch Man finally shows up, when he gets his hits in. But yeah, it's really good. The artwork is phenomenal. Like, you can't fault it, and it is quite fun. It reads very quickly though. You do get quite a lot of action and not a lot of development, so you'll flick through that bit quickly. But it's really good. One Punch Man, it's deservedly popular, and I'm very happy to be reading it. Next is World Trigger, which is one of these. The action is fantastic and it's great, but the in-between chapters where they're just talking to each other, I don't particularly care. Everyone just stands rigid, and there's lots of talking heads, and they're all just talking and talking and talking. And I know you need a story, but the story's not that interesting. But the action's great. So it's that toss up when there's action going on, which is about 75% of the time. It's really fun, and it's quite tactical involved, and you can kind of see what's going to happen next, kind of thing. And it's surprisingly violent because they're like they all fight in like proxy bodies sort of thing. So when they actually get their head cut off, it's quite violent to look at, even though they're not actually getting any harm done to them. So it can be more violent than what it is in other stories. But no, I do enjoy it, but the talking, it kind of bogs me down a little bit, and I wish it would be a bit more exciting when there's not action going on. Which brings us to SERAPH of the End, which is I don't know, it just doesn't click with me, which is a shame. I will be more positive later on. Don't hate me. But SERAPH of the End is just lots of self-satisfied vampires, which that's fair. They're the bad guys. They're allowed. And then you get these really angsty main characters who, I don't know. They're just kind of a little bit too angsty. They're kind of like, oh, I'm gonna beat this guy. I was like, oh no, wait, don't do that. You gotta evaluate the situation first. I'm just like, just do it or don't. I don't care. Get on with it. Yeah, it's just one of these series. It might be good for you, but it hasn't quite clicked with me, and I'm not 100% why. It's just not for me, unfortunately. I wish I could explain it better, but sorry, I can't do it. Next, we got still a few more to go, but we're getting there. Next up is Hunter x Hunter, which I had never read before. I've always heard that it's really popular, and it has a very hardened fan base over the last few years. It's kind of really got my attention that Western fans are really into it. The artist has been on long-term illness, and he's suddenly come back, and he published a bunch of chapters. I think it was like 10 chapters or something. And even though I didn't know anything about the story, I got into it. I wanted to read more. And so yeah, I'm now interested in Hunter x Hunter, and I've got to go back and I'll start collecting the books. It's not a short series. It's going to be expensive, but I'm going to have to go back and try and read some Hunter x Hunter and get me up to speed. Because coming in so many chapters into the story, yeah, there's no way I'd know what was going on, but I still enjoyed it, which is a sign of a good manga. And yeah, unfortunately, the artist, he hadn't got his strength back fully. Yeah, he stopped doing chapters after that session of like 10 or so, and he hasn't come back since, so everyone's waiting again, which it's quite a shame. I hope he feels better soon and he can continue his work. But what I read, you got a new fan, mate, so hang in there. Next up, Food Wars, Shokugeki no Soma, which is fantastic. It's a cooking series, lots of cool cooking, interesting characters, a little bit of guesswork and intrigue between, like, there's a guy who wants to shut this cooking school down and have everyone cooking in exactly the right way. And our hero, he's kind of like on the rebellion side. He wants everyone to cook whatever they want. Make their own experience, make their own mistakes, learn for themselves how to be a good cook. So it's kind of like a clash of philosophies in the cooking world. It's really good, and it's quite funny when people eat the food. Their clothes explode because they have like a big metaphorical experience on what it's like to eat the food, and it's great stuff. It's really, really good. Every chapter, I really enjoy it. It's one of the best series in the anthology at the minute. Yeah, so Food Wars is great. I actually went back and I started picking up the books. So yeah, it's really good. I'm a convert. It's a great manga. Which brings us to My Hero Academia, which I have got a lot of time for this series. I really like it. It's about a kid who gets superpowers, and then he joins like Superhero Academy, My Hero Academia, and they start learning how to use their powers, how to integrate in society and save people, this kind of stuff. And also there's like a bad guy affiliation who they want to be anarchists, basically, this kind of thing. But the characters are interesting, and it's one of the few series where the main character, he isn't hard work and guts in a meathead sense. He's not like Naruto. He won't like keep headbutting a wall until he wins. He's not that kind of hard work and guts. He's intelligent. He calculates. He thinks things through. He studies. He's this kind of main character, which is a little bit unusual amongst all the you know, burning, raging, do your best, gambarimasu. He's not quite that level of enthusiasm. He's calm, collected, an intelligent main character, which is quite unusual, and I really like reading about him. He's quite cool. It's a quality series. The artwork's phenomenal, and the characters are fun, and the story's interesting. It's got it all going on. I've got no complaints. I really enjoy it. And also a great series is Black Clover, which I don't think a lot of people who I've been talking to about this series, they don't really seem to have taken to it that much, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think it's great fun. It's like completely derivative. It's got the rivalry. It's got the I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do 5,000 sit-ups a day training kind of attitude to it. But it's got a sense of fun. All the characters in it are a little bit broken, and they complete each other by hanging out together, and they find their acceptance that way, and they fight bad guys and they beat each other up, and it's just fun. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know, it's just a shame. I wish more people would enjoy it, but I really like it, and it's got fantastic artwork. It's kind of like a shonen version of Berserk in that kind of medieval style. But it's got none of the nastiness of Berserk, but it's got that level of detail in it, which is just great. And it's the sense of fun. It's just really good. Okay, a few more to go. We're almost there. Okay, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V. This is going to be short. Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't play it. I haven't watched it since like Yugi was in Yu-Gi-Oh! You know what I mean? I haven't really got that much interest in it. Like, the artwork's great, I can't dispute that, and the story, there isn't much story, and the battling, because I don't follow the card game, it's kind of more or less incomprehensible. It's got quite convoluted rules that if you're not particularly invested in, it's difficult to get excited by, you know. Which is, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! It appears once a month. I kind of skim through it. I'm not particularly taken with it, but I think it's kind of a source for a lot of the Weekly Shonen Jump's reader base. So I can't complain about it being there, because it's getting more people reading all the other manga in the subscription. So yeah, it's not for me, but I'm sure it's definitely got an audience. I can't argue with it. Next up is another monthly series, Boruto, which is Naruto the Next Generation. It is Boruto is Naruto's son. So far, there's a movie of Boruto, and it kind of explains his origin story and how he gets involved in, like, whether he wants to be a ninja or not. And the manga so far is just following the movie. It hasn't really gotten to a part where it's doing its own thing. It's still following a predetermined script from that movie, which came out over a year ago. It's really old now, so it's got potential for sure. Like, the artwork's phenomenal. It's really, really good. The art's done by one of Masashi Kishimoto, is the author of Naruto, and it's one of his assistants from like really early, like volume 1 or 2. He started right near the beginning. Yeah, he's worked for it virtually as long as the original creator. He knows Naruto inside out, and his artwork is great. Really, really nice. The line work's really strange. It's kind of got like a almost stiff, cold-hearted aesthetic to it. It's just really great artwork. I haven't got any problems with it. It's very individual and distinctive, and I'm glad it's being serialized. But yeah, one chapter a month. You'll be able to get a better opinion on it once it goes past the origin story. But for now, I really enjoy it, and yeah, we're getting there. We're almost into the new stuff. Okay. 2 more to go. Next up is The Promised Neverland, which was one of these series that was trialled. It was like a jumpstart series, and they didn't even put it on a break. After 3 chapters, they're just like, keep it, go straight to chapter 4. And seriously, it's easily in my top 3 series of all of Shonen Jump. It is amazing. If you've not read of it or heard of it, it's basically a bunch of kids are stuck in this orphanage, and they're kind of like in an enclosed environment. They're trained to do like puzzles and be super smart, and they've all got like tattoos on their necks. They're all like recorded and marked, and it's very odd. It's very strange, and it turns out that these children, they're being farmed for their, I don't know, for these monsters that I think they're going to get eaten. It's bad. It's really bad conspiracy. And the whole thing is super claustrophobic. It's really creepy, and a couple of kids find out that they're in a doomed environment, but they need to plan an escape without letting their supervisor know that they know. It's basically a super claustrophobic version of Death Note, because Death Note was very strategic. A lot of characters trying to second guess each other on what they should or shouldn't do. And Promised Neverland is basically like that. The characters are a little bit younger, but they're playing against an adult, and it's bad. The stakes are higher, and they know exactly who the trouble is. They haven't got to guess someone's name or guess who the bad guy is. It's all kinds of bad. And every chapter, it has a nice little twist. They can really keep those twists coming. And frankly, it hasn't put a foot wrong. I quite like the artwork. I think it's got this kind of edge to it. It's a little bit creepy. And it's gradually, essentially, we're like 15 chapters in. Nothing's really happened, but because the characters have got to be so careful, every little move has to be carefully planned, whether they should or shouldn't do a certain thing or say a certain thing. It's so intricate whether they do or don't take action in certain instances that even though superficially not a lot's happened, a lot of development has gone on, and all these characters have grown and gradually become involved with each other in they've all got their own different agendas, and it's all very overlapped and complicated, and at any given moment it could all come crashing down. It's crazy. I've loved this series, and I want everyone to be talking about it. If they make an anime series, I think people are really gonna enjoy it. Be careful, it's very spoiler heavy. So I've told you basically what happens in the first chapter. Don't try and find out much more than that, because it can be easily spoiled. It's great. Very much look out for it. And yeah, the last series that just started at the end of October is Ruby. It's the series that Rooster Teeth done, told in manga form, or it's like a prequel or something like this. Personally, I've never watched Ruby, so I don't have a massive investment in the new series. Like, the artwork is great, but the dialogue isn't particularly fantastic. It's okay. It's not made for me because I'm not a pre-established fan. And honestly, if I'm to get into it, I think it's going to have to be through the animated series. I don't think the manga's going to be able to do it for me, which is a shame. It's definitely got a fan base, and it's a huge series. Everyone loves it, but I'm yet to be a part of that fan base. But yeah, the artwork's great though, and the action's quite cool. And that is it. I think that's over 25 mini reviews I've just done, so I think I've talked your ear off enough. I'm sure I've made some opinions that you don't necessarily agree with, but if I can explain why I do or don't think something, hopefully you can respect that enough. And yeah, it's great. 2016 has been a really interesting year for Shonen Jump, and 2017 promises to be just as interesting. We got some real potential. Because the long series have ended, there's some real potential for some of these new series to really establish themselves. I think Promised Neverland is going to be really hot. I really hope that it takes off. Black Clover's got an anime coming, as far as I'm aware, so that's going to take off next year. It's going to be huge. But Promised Neverland is currently my pick. That's currently my hot tip for what's going to be the next big thing. Fingers crossed for it. It's really great, and I hope it continues. And that is Weekly Shonen Jump 2016, discussed quite briefly. I tried not to rush too much, but we touched on more or less everything. And yeah, I hope you thought that was a bit of fun. I wonder what your opinions are on some of these ones. But this is Ushio signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.